everyone. This is Professor Jeff Wilkerson at Luther College talking to you once more about what to look for in the night sky. This time we're going to be talking about the week of June 21st, 2021. I think we're going to focus our attention on Antares, the bright star in Scorpius. It's getting to be the right time of year as we get the middle end of June to be looking at Scorpius and Sagittarius, and so we'll spend a few weeks talking about this area of the sky. Antares, biggest, brightest object in the south. So those of you who live in mid-northern latitudes like I do have to look pretty far south to see Antares. Antares is up now. Scorpius is up now all night long. So as it gets dark, you'll be able to see bright orange-red Antares shining in the south. Very, very red-looking star. It's a first magnitude star. Remember, we've talked about the magnitude system the last few weeks. It counts backward, and every step in magnitude is an apparent brightness step of about a factor of 2.5. And so this is a first magnitude star. On most lists, that would place it to be about the 15th visually brightest star in the sky. So it's a pretty noticeable, pretty bright star. And so it's part of the head of the Scorpion. And you see these three stars off to the west will be very visible. Often there's a fourth star down here that's fairly visible as well, for me anyway. But it's noticeably fainter than these three stars. The first magnitude stars, these three stars are all about somewhere between second and third magnitude. So still easily visible stars to the naked eye. This one's somewhere between third and fourth magnitude. So you see these three or four. And then the Scorpion swings back this direction, down in here. And you'll see a tail this way. And you might, depending on where you are, for me, that gets pretty close to the southern horizon. It can be pretty difficult to see. So depending on where you are, you might or might not be able to see large portions of that tail. And it's an impressive summer. It's a marker of summer. It really is. For me, it's the sort of quintessential marker of midsummer is looking for Scorpius. And we'll talk about there's beautiful globular cluster right next to Antares, M4. And there are open star clusters out in this direction that are wonderful and worth trying to observe. And then Sagittarius sits right over here on the tail of Scorpius. But we'll talk about that in future videos. Right now, we just want to go out. We want to find Antares this week and look for the head of Scorpius over here. Go out anytime during the night. You go out just after dark. It's going to be a little bit east of south. As you go out a couple hours after dark, look more or less straight south to find Antares. And if you're observing after midnight, sometime more closer to dawn, then look for it west of straight south. Fairly unmistakable, but if you want help locating it, on Wednesday the 23rd, the nearly full moon, I don't know if you can see my calendar there, is X'd out. That means that my cluster that I observe, that I do research on, is right over here. And this means the moon's too close to do observing on those nights with big red X's on my calendar. And that's what the 23rd is, one of those nights. And so the moon is going to be sitting just a few degrees, almost full moon, just a few degrees north of Antares. So watch on the 23rd, the evening overnight of the 23rd, watch for the full moon and see the bright red Antares just below the moon right there. You should have no trouble finding that on that night. With the moon this full, there are very few objects that actually don't get washed out that you can still see when the moon's this bright and illuminating the sky. But Antares is certainly one of them. And so Antares is bright enough to hold up, and that's going to be a really nice pairing. The nearly full moon and Antares on the evening overnight of the 23rd. Go out, check it out. Antares is part of a binary system. It's theoretically you should be able to observe the companion star. I'm not sure I've ever seen it. My memory, possible years ago that I was actually able to observe it. But Antares is so bright, and the companion's only about 5 arc seconds away, so it's pretty close. And so it's going to be right in on top of that primary star, making it really hard to see the fainter companion against that really bright primary component right there. So Antares is an evolved star. It's what we would call a red supergiant star. So it has used up all of the hydrogen, converted all the hydrogen into helium in its core, and it's doing shell fusion at successive shells further out, and it's actually very evolved and getting along pretty far in its life cycle as a a red supergiant star. And it's probably just over 10 times as massive as the sun. So pretty big star too, not the biggest of stars, but I think the biggest star known, the most massive star, is about 60 times the mass of the sun. But those stars are very, very rare. So there aren't a lot of stars that get a lot bigger than this, but they are out there for sure at that mass. But at this evolved stage, it has really puffed up. That's how a star gets to be red. Is a red giant? The pressure pushes its outer layers out, and the outer layers cool as they expand, and so it cools into this red outer shell. We don't know exactly how big the star is, but it's the diameter is going to push it out past, if it were at the center of our solar system, out past Mars's orbit and maybe as far as Jupiter's orbit. So it's a big star. It's a big evolved low density star. Low density star. So despite being 10 times the mass of the sun or a little bit more, the density is going to be a lot less than the density of the sun because there's a huge volume that star has expanded out into. So watch for the moon on the evening of the 23rd. Next to Antares, and we'll use Antares. Once you get good at finding Antares in the head of Scorpius here, we'll use it over the next several weeks to find other objects around this part of the sky, and it will be a good marker for us to use hopping forward. Keep watching the moon as we get out to the 26th, the Saturday night, the overnight of the 26th. Then the moon will pass just south of Pluto. And so the moon's going to be about on the 26th, the moon will be over here. It'll be about 3 degrees, about half a fist width at arm's length, about 3 degrees south of Pluto, a little less, probably a third of a fist width, south of Pluto. And so you could probably see Pluto in binoculars or a small telescope at that time, but it would be hard to know what you're looking at because it's going to just look like a star to you when you see it against the background. You're not going to see it in binoculars. I should be careful there. You're going to see it in a telescope. If you have a decent sized backyard telescope, you would be able to see Pluto. Even the smallest of telescopes, you'd have a hard time seeing it. But again, you're going to have a very hard time recognizing Pluto. And your best bet is to take a picture on successive nights and look for something that's moved in that frame. You can go see that on our webpage there. By the next night, on the evening of that's the 26th, on the evening of the 27th, Pluto will pass about 5 degrees, half a fist width at arm's length, south of Saturn. Not Pluto, the moon. The moon will, good grief, we'll back up. So it's going to go from the moon, we're going to go from Pluto to Saturn. So we got Pluto here and Saturn out here. And on the 27th, watch for the moon. It's starting to wane now. It's past full and it's starting to wane. And so you watch for the moon to slide south of Saturn, and it'll be about 5 degrees south. So the moon's going to make a very nice pairing on the 23rd with Antares, and it's going to make a pretty nice pairing with Saturn on the 27th. So these are things to keep an eye on in the week ahead. I hope you have clear skies, good observing. Go out and observe Antares. Watch the moon close to Antares and watch the moon close to Saturn at the end of the week. Have a good week, everyone.